I wanted to take you back to your roots. What was
Well, in primary school, I started to learn the violin and recorder, but recorder was everyone in the whole
yeah.
class used to play recorder and played Three Blind Mice. I think was about as far as we got. We'd all play it together, and it was pretty awful, I think. But yeah, I soon got put into violin lessons, and that probably sounded worse, to be fair.
I mean, violin is pretty notoriously bad at the beginning stages, but
Yeah, for
then I've
sure.
heard you play it recently, in your music, so
Yeah,
it's
it got a
clearly
bit
gotten
better.
somewhere. At what point then further on did you come to the conclusion you wanted to tap in music full time, as in you were in IT and then you switched to music?
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting one. I worked in IT for about 25 years, and I've always been playing music. From my teens, I've been playing guitar regularly, all the time, really. But it never occurred to me that you could actually make any kind of living or do anything sensible with it. Because you get brought up thinking that you need a label, that you kind of got
Yeah.
to get discovered. You got to have a band. You got to get. And there's so many different things you think you got to do, and it just doesn't even occur to you that actually you could just do it yourself. I got quite high up in the company I was in. As I went up the rungs of the ladder, I found that the people on those rungs I didn't really want to be like. If that made any sense. There's a lot of people there that were really in it for themselves rather than for either the company or for the other people, or kind of work pulling together as a team, or it was all about how can this project benefit me? What am I going to get out of it? I don't want to work in an environment like that, really. And so I started thinking, right, I need to do something else. Where can I go? What shall I do? And I thought, do you know what? Let's do it. I thought, let's do some music. I'm pretty good at it. I don't know what to do or how to do it. But the nice thing was, because I kind of decided I wanted to do it, it meant I could take my time leaving, and actually work was a lot more bearable when you know that you've got an end date and you've got another something else that you're going to do. So I took probably 2 years saving, because obviously when you start a business, you're not going to get a whole load of money coming through the door straight off, for sure,
Yeah.
at all. Um, and so, and it just enabled me to start getting my following up and getting some music out there, and just trying to build a platform so that when I did leave work, at least I had a head start.
Yeah, that's quite clever, actually. Very well thought out of plan, because you are an independent musician and you employ very creative ways of making your music seen. Like you offer to get your compilation album, The Echoes Remain, completely free of charge to people's doorstep. You do pre-orders. You offer handwritten
Yeah,
guitar
yeah, yeah.
tabs and lyrics and all sorts of other things. How do you come up with those ideas?
I've been very lucky to be part of a group of really special musicians. With the Shrilly group that we were both in, was
Where we
absolutely
met?
instrumental. And we met so many good people there, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I've got lots of wonderful independent friends, some who do it for a job and some who just do it as a hobby. But do you remember Lynn's?
Yeah.
I still contact her regularly. We have video calls and bounce ideas off each
Oh,
other.
that's really
And
nice.
I just do a lot of reading, to be honest. And also the other thing I do is, I think I'm a musician, but I'm also a music fan. I love people's music, and I've got several bands and artists that I would just love to play with for being in the same room as them. You know what I mean? I'm a super geek fan for some of these bands. So I think, what would I like? What could that band or that artist offer me? What would I think would be really, really cool? And then
Yeah.
I see if I can implement that myself. But I love it. It's not the best paid job in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but we also foster. My wife is a deputy head in a special school, and between it all works, which is
Yeah.
great. And for me, it's so satisfying. I feel like I'm making a difference. You know what I mean? A lot of our life is there's some really tough bits, especially with the fostering. And for me, when they get to school, and I've just got a few hours at home in between all the meetings and everything, and I get creative. And without that, I think I'd find life really quite difficult. But it's that thing that I need to kind of you're giving out, but it comes back in at the same time.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense, and it keeps me who I am, and I love it. And when we don't have heaps of faceless fans. It's not like the Spotify experience where you put music out and then people listen to it somewhere. That's
Mm.
not how we work. We've got so many friends and followers, and we know them one to one. We know their names. We know where they live. We know what cats they've got. You know what other music they like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's lovely because you really get to know your listeners. I think that's really special. You get that connection. It's not just a musical connection, but you get that connection of I know who you are and you know me, and and it's great. I mean, there's parts of your life that you don't share.
Yeah, of
Some
course.
of it, some of it isn't my story to tell. I think it makes the music more powerful if you've got an insight into the person making it.
Yeah, yeah, you know what it's about. You know what it's influenced by, the story behind it. What you were saying about getting to know people, and I've really been liking social media because of that. Whereas previous to saying, oh yeah, you can actually connect to people. It did seem to me also like a kind of faceless, mysterious thing. But yeah, it's been quite nice exploring social media for the social aspect of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got to admit, I think if I stopped doing music now, I probably wouldn't be on social media anymore if it wasn't for the music and for the people that I've met with the music and those connections we've made here. I think, especially watching my children grow up, I can see how amazing social media can be, but I can see just how many challenges there are with it as well, especially for young people. And it's I don't know. I don't know. I've got very mixed thoughts about it.
Social
It's
media
like a
can have a
necessary
very
evil.
negative impact also, but I don't think your presence on there is that.
Oh,
So,
well,
I think your presence on there is one of the positives. Not one of the you gotta look a certain way and act a certain way and that sort of stuff. But yeah.
that's it. I think you got to keep to the people who make your life a little bit better.
Yeah.
There's a lot on there, and I mean, personally, I try and stay away from politics if I possibly can. I do have political views, but I prefer to keep a positive spin on my social media. Really, I like to feel that when people see my post, they can make them feel a little bit happier or a little bit more excited or something like that, rather than just adding to the general the
Yeah.
general misery of
Yeah, that's quite nice. And also, because you do music, it's not always about sharing all of your views and on all of the topics that you can. I think, for example, Roger Waters has gone a bit overboard on that, but with sharing his
it's a
political views,
possibility.
but yeah, let me not dwell on that. But yeah, also congrats are due on the release of your latest album, Presence. How did the writing process go, and what new techniques did you have to learn in order to express all you wanted to in this album? Because your albums tend to be quite varied.
Yes, they're. I mean, this is completely different to anything I've ever done, really. I'm a guitarist and I play guitar on most of my albums. Have got guitar in, although there was one where I deliberately didn't put any guitar in just for fun. I stuck to kind of other instruments just to see if I could do it really, and it came out with a really interesting sound. But I'm digressing. But yeah, this one, I've got to be honest. This year has been really tough for us. It's had some amazing points in it, and we've had some amazing times as well. But there's also been real some real lows and hard times, and it's still tough. It's tough. We have a very joy filled but tough life at the moment, and I just found that I was trying to write songs, and I didn't know how to say what it is I wanted to say. I didn't know what I wanted to say. I've just got all these emotions kind of bubbling up in there, and I needed a way to express them, and I found I could do that by with my guitar rather than with my lyrics this time. My last album was lyric based, kind of acoustic guitar, simple accompaniments, and it was all about the lyrics. But this one is just all about kind of heart and soul coming through the guitar. And I found I was able to express everything going on in my crazy up and down life through playing the guitar. And I also came to the conclusion really that I wanted to be able to play more and play better to express that more. I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was about 14, I think. So I mean, we're talking, a long old time, 30 odd years. But I've never taken lessons or anything like that. I've always taught myself, and and you get to a point where you can play what you want to play. You can play live, and and it's not that you get lazy. It's just that it's like talking. I don't practice my English because I've got to a point where it does everything I need it to. But actually, if I wanted to go and do a particular job, I might have to actually go and study it. If I wanted to go and teach English in a university, I would need to study what am I actually doing here
Yeah.
rather than just speak. And I found it was the same with the guitar. For this album, I needed to be better. So I spent quite a lot of time just practicing my technique, getting it kind of cleaner and better. I've never been a quick player. I've always majored on phrasing and melodies. You can sing all of the tracks pretty much all the way through.
Yeah.
But every now and again, you just need this burst of energy and you need to play a little bit quicker. And I found I wanted to put in some just to build the energy, And so I practiced playing quicker, and that takes different techniques. And then you need to start damping a bit better, and so I started playing with some more kind of two-handed techniques and all sorts. So basically, I spent pretty much a year, several hours a day, just getting better at the guitar, and that was quite an experience, things I've been playing for so long, and there's so much more to go. I've still got loads of areas I can think, "Oh, I've got to get better at that." So yes, so look out. It's gonna get better as well.
That's
So yeah,
awesome. Well, I feel with guitar, there's always something more to explore. It's just, especially since you're not, for example, doing just acoustic or just electric, you're doing all sorts of things. There's always a lot more to learn. There's always another
absolutely.
song, another technique.
I think once you start learning more guitar technique, it's quite seductive in a way. If you're not careful, you can end up playing stuff just to show off the technique and
Mm.
loads of notes. And actually, in all honesty, nobody wants to listen to that. You know what I mean? They want to listen to a melody, and it's got to be phrased properly. So you've got to keep bringing back down and say, "Yeah, I know how to do this. I know how to do that. But when do I do it? How long do I do it for?
Yeah.
Has the song got an arc? Does it start slow and then work itself up and get more powerful and then come back down again? Or is it just am I just trying to wow people with a million notes per minute? I'm not in any kind of race here. I just want to make the best kind of tunes that I can.
Yeah, the point is that it serves the song, not
That's it.
not for the song to encompass a technique.
That's it. And I've worked really hard on making sure that you can sing all. It's they're instrumentals, but you can sing them all the way through.
Yeah.
And for me, that's really important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like when that's the case. Also, I really liked when you released that music video as well, and you can really also see the emotion. And geez, how you carried that amp up there, actually. I don't know.
I'm
That's a heavy
shattered.
thing to carry.
That was fun. I'm very lucky. I've worked with Nick Siertinas for years when I was in IT. We're still firm friends, and we we live about 2 miles from each other, and I quite often wander down there for a barbecue and a couple of drinks, then wander back again. So we quite often meet up, and he's a fantastic photographer, and he doesn't do a lot of video, but whatever he does, he just does really, really well. So and he's got a drone, and so we just kind of went with all the kit and worked out what time sunrise would be. And luckily, there was a sunrise, and it just came out
Yeah.
perfectly. And he did such a good job on it. It really did. I mean, the rest of the album artwork, we went to the Lake District for a couple of days, and that was great fun. And we got up for the sunrise on both those days, and there wasn't one, so we
Oh.
couldn't film anything sunrise related there. And the song was called Sunrise, so this was like the second attempt, really. We did it here, and it was great fun. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I'm so
thought
lucky.
it worked great. I don't know if there was. You're saying he doesn't do much video, but clearly he put passion into it and he captured your emotion. And I just think it's really well put together. That's all. I think it just
Oh,
matches
thank you.
really well.
Yeah, it was great
I
fun.
really
It was
liked
great
it.
fun.
Besides the guitar, you also play several other instruments. The violin. I think you also do bagpipes. Is that right?
Yes, Irish bagpipes.
Yeah.
I'm not kind of a grandmaster on them. Uilleann pipes. That's Irish for elbow because you
Ah,
have
because you held it.
you have bellows under one arm,
Yeah.
and the bellows feed a bag under your other arm. So you keep this bag nice and pumped up with the bellows, and you squeeze this one, and it forces the air down the chanter, which is basically like a recorder, and then you play it with your two hands.
Uh,
It's such an amazing emotive sound. It's a wonderful instrument and ferociously difficult to play. Honestly, I've played lots of instruments, and it's by far the hardest.
yeah, I didn't know it involves having bellows as well to to fill up the whole well, I don't know, the whole bag, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah. And you also play piano and mandolin, and I'm probably missing some stuff. But how
yeah.
does this wide range of knowledge influence the way that you create music?
I think one of the best things about learning lots of instruments is not even that you can play them. If I write all my songs just on guitar, they're influenced by where my kind of fingers go and where the scales fit nicely and the chords that I know and what I just generally go to. If I go on the piano and start noodling about, I'm nowhere near as good on the piano as guitar by any stretch of the imagination, but it sounds different, has a different flavor, has a different feel. I use different chords, different runs, and it just sounds completely different. And even if I then take the piano out of the equation, the song that I've created sounds completely different than if I'd composed it on guitar. It's the same with all sorts. So that album I was talking about before, Chasing Down Wolves, I used a cittern, which is a bit like a mandolin. It's got 10 strings in pairs, and it doesn't really sound anything like a guitar. And I used that in conjunction with a bass guitar and drums and things and kind of percussion. And that was really interesting because it doesn't really sound like anything else that you'd normally hear. You've kind of got the cittern up here, and you got the bass here, and then the kind of percussion goes all around it, and it kind of works out quite nicely, actually. Yes, that was good fun. But yeah, violin I played since I was very small. I had a break when I went to university. I just didn't take it with me, and I'd been doing it at school every day since I was a tiddler, doing orchestras and practicing for at least an hour a day at home as well. And it comes to the point where you just think, I'm not entirely sure why I'm doing this. I'm doing all this work on this instrument, but am I even enjoying it? I don't know. At university, I just didn't take it with me, and I didn't really pick it up again until about 10 years later, and then discovered, wow, I can do all sorts on here. Because I started listening to folk and Show of Hands and Seth Lakeman and started playing some of that kind of stuff. It just no music, just playing by ear. It was so different to playing the classical sheet music that I used to do. Well, I mean, I love all that stuff. That's great, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. But it just opens your horizons when you suddenly realize I don't have to play what's on the piece of paper in front of me. I can do whatever I like.
Yeah, you
And
can
that,
improvise.
yeah, classically trained for 20 years or something, and no one told me I could improvise. No one even, it wasn't even mentioned. There was never any point where someone said, "Well, why don't you try making, having a go at playing something different or enjoying yourself?"
Interesting, because I've seen a lot of people from the classical world say exactly that, that improvising isn't really a thing in the classical world. I started learning the guitar as classical guitar, but I never went to a classical guitar tutor as such.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it had kind of a different background to that, because I went to a jazz man who kind of taught me about improvising and all sorts of
Oh,
stuff.
lovely.
But yeah, it's quite interesting that actually, yeah, you're confirming that in the classical world, it's not really about improvising and creating your own stuff, more about learning pieces and building a repertoire and that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess, and if you're going to go into a professional orchestra or something like that, that's exactly what you need to do. And you've got to play in a certain style, and you've got to play exactly the same as everybody else. You've
Yeah.
all got to look identical when you're in the orchestra together. But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic grounding. Yeah, it means your technique is nailed. And then when you do start improvising, you've got the best of both worlds there.
That's great. That's great that you found, I guess, your love back for the violin. Because,
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. It's
yeah.
great fun. And I tell you something interesting I found, which I've never heard anyone else do before, but I managed to find some special strings I could put on my second violin, and it puts it an octave lower.
Mm.
So it's lower than a viola, not as low as a cello, um, and it gives a really different sound, but it's still on the instrument that I'm used to playing, if that makes any sense. And I
Ah,
use that quite a lot in my recording, and you can see people thinking, what is that?
That's
But
great.
that's great fun. You have to play it slightly differently, actually, because it's lower. You have to do your
Yeah, the
vibrato.
intonation would be different as well, I imagine.
Yeah, and you have to do your vibrato really slow. On a
Mm.
violin, you do it quite quick, but if you think about a cello vibrato, it's almost,
Mm.
and it's so yeah, you end up playing it a little bit different. But it's yeah, so I've really enjoyed that. That's good fun.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a lot of fun. Because well, I didn't do it out of want, but my first ever acoustic guitar, it was, I don't know, some basic beginner thing. So with time, the neck caved in, so I detuned it to be way lower, right? So that the neck could stay straight.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
but then because, of course, it's a fret instrument, the intonation just went because you can't change the intonation. But on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
violin, you don't have frets, so
Amazing.
you can change the strings and do all sorts of tuning. And it will
Yeah.
like you'll have to figure your way around it. I'm sure takes some time to do
Although
that, but
interestingly, because it's not fretted, you if your string is slightly out of tune, you don't unless you're playing open strings, which in classical music is frowned upon anyway, because you can't vibrato on an open string. Um, you just kind of adjust. You don't even notice really, but you just put your fingers in a different position to make sure it sounds right. So I mean, you put your finger on the string and you do your vibrato and you kind of adjust where it is without thinking about it, so it's in tune. But so on I had one guy because I do some remote session work as well. I had one guy send me a song, and it was what was it in? I can't remember what key it was in, but it was he wanted me to play some specific stuff, and it was hideously complicated. And I suddenly realized if I tune my violin up half a tone, a semitone, um, it makes it dead easy. So I did this, and I couldn't play it because I'm so used to knowing that when I put this finger down, it sounds like this.
yeah.
That if everything was half a tone, half a semitone out, I put my finger there, and my brain was going, "That doesn't sound right. You've got to move." So yeah, but the octave down strings don't seem to have that problem, so that's good.
Yeah, well, I think octave has more in common than just the semitone. It's exactly the most annoying interval, probably, where it's right next to each other, right? So it's like
No, there are. I've ended up talking about violin. There's not really much violin on this album, but there is about 8 bars of my octave down violin in the middle of one of them. If you can find it,
nice. It was
I've
still
put some strings
interesting
on.
to me, though.
Yeah, I have put some strings on. I generally play violin, a violin line, octave down violin, a viola, and then some string pads as well at the bottom, and kind of mix it together to get a nice string sound. So there's some kind of nice, powerful string background swells in some of the music as well. So actually, it's not quite true. It's not just the 8 bars.
That's really cool. Yeah. I guess actually, maybe in some way that classical mindset then comes through because you need to be able to hear that arrangement behind it to be able to create it, which is what you've done to add those
Oh, for
pads, to add
sure.
those.
And I think listening to a lot of classical music is actually really helpful as well because I mean everything you listen to comes out
Mm,
somehow when you
yeah.
play at some point. It's all mixed together inside you and comes out as like a big soup of everything you've ever listened to. Hopefully, with a little bit of extra spice that you've put in that is a bit different. But with the classical music, because some of it is so very long, you get a sense of how a track should be shaped. You listen to a lot of pop songs. There's no shape in it at all. It's just bam, all
Well,
it's pretty much the same all the way through, verse, chorus, verse. And quite often, it can be very catchy, but nothing really happens. But you want to make it feel like you're walking up a mountain, and it starts off slow, gets hard, and then there's a glorious thing at the top, and then an easy ride down, or it should feel like you're on a journey with the song. And I think also listening to a lot of classical music frees you from the 3 minutes. um, and you can end up you just think, "Oh, how long does this track need to be the right length?" Rather than, I need to get it to 2 minutes 59 so it gets radio play.
Maybe that's the good thing about being independent, then, that you don't have to think about radio play, it needs to get that many plays or whatever, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think during the COVID lockdown, I did an instrumental album actually, but it was not guitar based. There's a little bit of guitar in it, but it was Celtic instrumentals, big percussion, lots of violin, just lots of lovely melody. And I completely did that album for me and nobody else. You've got all that time at home and you just, and so many weird things happening.
Yeah,
But
gotta have an outlet.
I basically took all the rules for releasing an album and threw them out the window. I started with like a 10-minute piece, and it starts off with a very quiet, just kind of pad and the Tibetan prayer bowls, just kind of and things like that. Just nothing happens for the first 5 minutes, basically, and you're thinking, if you wanted to catch someone's attention for radio play or for putting on a film or something, this is exactly how you wouldn't do it. But I kind of got that perverse mind where I really quite enjoyed just throwing the rules out the window and doing something different, and it really worked. I got so much positive feedback from that album,
That's great.
precisely because you could just put it on if you're into prayer and meditation or anything like that. It's perfect for that. If you were doing homework or revising or study, it was perfect to put in the background there as well. People found it useful as well as nice to listen to. So yeah, it was interesting
Yeah,
experience.
I think a lot of us needed something to keep us company during those long times, whether it be an album that we can listen to while we're doing our usual tasks that maybe we'd have otherwise someone else there in the room with us, but not this time.
I think a good album is like a friend, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, kind of.
They're,
You get something out of it. You can dwell on your thoughts and on your stuff with it, and kind of helps you get some clarity, maybe. But yeah, how do you build your relationship with your audience?
I mean, it starts off. It's basically one-to-one. It's a slow process, but it's literally getting to know one person, having a conversation with them, finding out what kind of music they like, their interests, who they are, and if it's something that they like, then they listen to your music, and you kind of take it from there, really. I mean, I have a newsletter that goes out to lots of people, and I've got a YouTube channel, and you kind of blast things on social media and all that. But it's those one-to-one conversations that actually get you a connection to somebody. And I think a lot of my listeners, obviously, they love the music. They wouldn't listen to it if they didn't. But also, they like me, I guess. As a person, it's not just the music. There's a whole package. It's about the person, and what they do and what they stand for, and a kind of more of a holistic thing rather than just here's a packaged music. It's not like some of the stuff in the charts that's had 12 lyric writers in a room and a session band that are drafted in to play it, and they haven't really got any soul in it. It's because it's just a job. This is far more personal, isn't it, when we do it? Because it's just us, and we end up doing everything ourselves. We end up doing the marketing, we do the artwork, we do our own accounts. We do this, that, and the other. We do IT support. I mean, honestly, it's mental. Sometimes you look at it and you think, and I do a bit of music. You do so many things yourself when you're an independent artist, but it's great. And I think it's really important that I love the fact that you call me an independent artist, not an unsigned artist, because that really gets up my nose when people say, "Oh, you're unsigned." No, I'm not looking for being signed. This is what I'm doing. I think the term unsigned, and it's used a lot by the BBC, even.
Oh, is it?
Or a lot of radio stations and blogs have unsigned artists, and you think, I think it's really doing them a disservice because it's saying you're missing something. You haven't reached what you wanted to reach. You're a failure.
It's like a backhanded attention throw.
Yeah, and I think that's a real shame, and I think independent is a much more positive
Yeah,
way of looking
I think, as you've said, you're not looking to be signed. You're not looking
at it.
to
That's it.
do that. And I think being independent is something amazing, and there's so much effort and work that needs to go into it. And it's not something to be taken lightly. Yeah, maybe you get one hit wonders that get there by, being lucky, but that's where maybe they are looking to be signed. But being independent is something completely different. It's like taking someone who is self-employed and calling them unemployed. Well, that's not true, is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean, even if I did want to be signed, I'm not in a position where I could be. As I said, I'm a foster carer. I work between 9 and 3, avoiding all the, and I've got plenty of other meetings and emails and reviews and video calls that are associated with that all the time. My evenings are so precious because we've got the kids, and you know, I can't go gigging every evening. I can't be going. I I do gig, but it's rare. I pick a place that I really want to play at, or I pick someone that I really want to play with, and then I'll put in some effort and make that really special. But I don't go down to the pub 6 nights a week and sing Wonderwall at people, or and I couldn't do a tour. I'm not in a position, the family position that we're in at the moment, that I could do anything like that. But I feel wonderfully blessed. I can still make amazing music, really, just in my own house with cheap kit. And I just think, I mean, 20 years ago, we couldn't have done this. We literally wouldn't have been able to do this.
Yeah.
Having a home studio that is professional standard is just mind-boggling. It's such a privilege, and in some ways it's hard because everybody's got them now, and so there's millions of people making music. So to kind of rise above the noise isn't actually very easy. So I find, for me, the hardest part isn't making the music, it's getting people to listen to it in the first place. If I can get people to listen to it, they like it generally. It's really rare that people listen to it and think, "Ooh, no, not my cup of tea." But actually, there's so much music out there. How do you get them to listen to yours? That's the trick that you got to conquer, really.
Yeah, but I think it's great that you're managing to do that on your terms, which is the great thing about being
Absolutely,
independent.
and I feel very lucky because a lot of people wouldn't be in a position to do that. So, yeah, got to make the most of it.
So, what is a tip you can give to other independent musicians who are embarking on this path now?
Don't give up the day job, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but music does not pay very well. You've got to. Oh, come on! People are still trying to buy CDs for a tenner. We were buying CDs for a tenner 30 years ago. It doesn't make any sense. Music is free. It's all on Spotify. It's on YouTube. So it's a product that. I mean, I've done lots of marketing courses, and they would all agree this is not the market for you to be spending your time in. If all you want to do is make money, music is the wrong area of business to do it in because it's oversaturated. There's too much out there. The product is too cheap, and it's just the wrong. As a marketing point of view, don't go near music with a barge pole. Unless it's your heart and soul and your passion, and you've got to, and then you just got to make it work somehow. But it is a tough business. I mean, I think you need to have several streams of income. If you're doing music, you probably need to be a session musician. You need to be, being paid by other people to put tracks on their guitar or violin or vocals or whatever it is on their music. You need to be making your own music and selling that. You need to be networking all over the place. You probably need to be gigging as well. You've got to work out lots of different streams of income because, for instance, if COVID comes and you can't gig, if all 90% of your money comes from gigging, you're stuffed. Or if 90% of your money comes from selling CDs and then Spotify comes along, you're stuffed. You know what I mean? It's or if all you do is session work and then AI gets a little bit better and people press a button and it puts some guitar on the background and people seem to be happy with that, then maybe you're stuffed. You need 4 or 5 different ways of making money to kind of spread the risk, I think. But I think the main thing, I mean, there's two ways of doing music, really. One is, what do people want? Where can I make my money? I'm going to go and make the music that fits that hole. And that is a perfectly good job. It's a perfectly honorable profession, and it's great that people do it. You have, we need that kind of stuff in the world. If you've got a film and you're going to make music for the specific, or even for adverts or anything, music is wonderful to have all around, and people have to make that music. But if you're going to do that, do it. For me, that would drive me nuts. I couldn't do that because it is creative, but it's not creative in the way that I like to be, which is blank sheet. What would I want to make? Let's make a work of art, and if nobody buys it, it'll be a shame, and I'll have to get a paper round or something. But actually, I'll have made a work of art, and that's what I want to do. Most of my albums are completely different in style and genre. There's a few that are similar, but I do hop around quite a lot. And for me, I just want to make what I need to make. It's for this album is what was in me and desperately needs to come out, and it just that's what I did. But if I was working for a label and they wanted to promote me in a certain way for a certain type of festival, so I needed a certain sound, I couldn't have done that. It wouldn't have exercised what it needed to have done. I would still have all that emotional energy inside me that wouldn't have been released. And if I'd been making whatever it is they wanted to make, that probably wouldn't have been very good because it wouldn't have been my heart and soul and my passion. If you've got it in your heart so much that you need to do this, you'll find a way.
Yeah.
You'll find a way to do it. And it's a really hard road. There's a few people that make a good deal of money out of it, but most musicians I know, even world class big names, is very hard for them, and it's just a really tough industry to be in. But the highs of it emotionally and creative, the creativity and what you actually make and all that, it makes it worthwhile. It's worth the fight, and it's worth all the aggro. It's a wonderful job to have.
Yeah.
But if you can do it, if you're thinking, oh, should I not? I'm not sure if I want to do music. Don't do it.
So
You got that burning
basically,
desire in
if
there,
it's a yes, do it. If you're not so sure, maybe reconsider.
absolutely. But you've got to be really practical. As I said, it doesn't make a lot of money. You've got to make sure you can afford it. You've got to make sure that, and there's 99% of musicians I know have a second job, or they've got a rich dad, or they've got this, that, and the other. There's no shame in having a job and doing your music as well. Great.
Yeah.
It's great. You're really adding something to the world with your music. So go ahead and make it. Get it out there. However you do it, get it out there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, also you said about your albums being so varied. And earlier on, you mentioned about having different influences and, having basically when you play on the guitar, it's what you've played before, where your fingers go, which is what our influences are, right? So, what would you say are your biggest influences?
That's really interesting. I don't plan to play like anybody, but I spent a lot of time playing Eric Clapton when I was a teenager. He really got in my blood, and I loved what he did. Gary Moore, for sure. Oh, Dave Gilmour. A lot of people say there's a lot of Dave Gilmour in my playing. I never got as good as any of them. I couldn't play most of what they played. I can play what I play. But there's definitely influences from those three in particular. I am also indebted to your kind of Steve Vai's and your Satriani's. I mean, they play some amazing stuff, and I mean Steve Vai in particular. I mean, he's a really interesting guy. He's one of those guys that I love to watch him talk, probably more than I like to watch him play. He's a really intelligent guy and says some very, very useful and helpful things. He's done a couple of albums which is just out of this world and melodic and harmonic and just take you to another place. And then a whole load of other albums that I just can't get into. It's just, to me, it just feels like whittling. It's amazing technique, but I just can't access it. And I can't sing any of the tunes, and I struggle with that. Satriani's last one. Elephants from Mars.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to it, thought, "Oh, not sure about this." And then I listened to it another few times, thought, "I'm gonna give this a go," and actually it's very, very good, so I heartily recommend that, that's good. I've also been listening to a guy called Dave Bronze, Brons, um, a lot. He's kind of a guitar shredder, he's got some lovely technique, but very melodic as well, and he's got a couple of kind of Lord of the Rings based albums,
Huh.
um, Celtic kind of fantasy, take you to another world type thing, and they're magic. So look out for Dave Bronze.
Yeah, I'll have
He's
to
he's
check him out.
fantastic. He's definitely an inspiration in me starting this album off as well. I think there's
Hmm.
quite a lot of Dave in there. That's my recommendation for the day. Check out Dave Bronze.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check him out as well. Yeah. What is something you want to experiment with in the future?
I'd quite like to get a double bass. Actually, I don't know why. I
Mm.
just fancy it. Um, I do have a I do my albums are really varied, but I've kind of got this. I've got some strange ideas for the next album, and I think I'd like to go a bit classical and throw away the kind of track thing. I'd quite like to. I think I'd probably need to do it so there's a break in the middle, so I can. So if necessary, I can put it on vinyl. But I'd
Mm.
really like to have just a whole album just running together, so you can just listen to it in one go and just.
Mm.
So
You'd like it to
I'd love
flow
to do
into
that.
one another.
Yeah, I think so, without having to kind of break for different tracks, and, it may work, it may not, but I think it would be an interesting experiment. I mean, that's something you would be a disaster if you were with a label, wouldn't it? But as an independent musician, you can actually try these things, and it is, and people who love you and you love your music will love it.
Hmm.
That's the beauty of it. I really love this album that I've just put out. Is For me, it's really special. In terms of the emotional content on it, apart from the fact that I can listen to that and think, "Oh, I couldn't have played that a year ago. I literally couldn't have played those notes a year ago." So this is, there's lots in there that's really special for me. And um, but I know where I want to go with the next one. I want to take that and I want to make it a little bit orchestral is not the right word. I want to make it bigger. Have a lot of guitars in, but I don't want it just guitars all the way through. I want it just more. I want it bigger with the guitar doing various bits in it rather than just being guitar, look at
Hmm.
me. You know what I mean? So
The guitar serving the overall piece and mood when it's needed.
yeah, I think so. I think that's probably where I need to go on the next one. Which which is just a little bit different. I mean, this album is guitar all the way through, unashamed. It just that's how I'm expressing my emotions with that guitar. So for this album, it's really important the guitar is up front and just
Yeah.
smashing it all the way through, really. And it goes up and down. It's not all 100 miles an hour or anything like that. Far from it.
Hmm.
Um, but it is the forefront of it all. But I think I'd like it just to take just a little bit of a step back. We'll see.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Get
that's
back to
very
more of the
curious
kind
to
of Celtic.
know.
I'd like to get some more of the kind of Celtic roots back in there again on the next album as well. I think if I can mix the um, kind of the Celtic landscape I stuff did with the Norglen album, with a bit more of the guitars from this album, I think it could be a potent combination.
Yeah, I think that will be very interesting. Again, a new direction. But yeah, also you mentioned Pink Floyd earlier as being your influences. So as we know, they have concept albums that they can flow into. I mean, they have different songs within them, but they flow from
No,
one
that's
into the
it. I
other,
mean,
right?
none of this is new. I mean, uh, so yeah, I mean, the way Pink Floyd do it is it's actually quite classical in a way. Some of their albums, the way it
Yeah,
flows.
I think that's what progressive music is about as well, just creating a whole thing.
Absolutely, yeah, progressive. Yeah, that's it
That's very
for sure.
interesting. Yeah. Okay, well, is there something that we've missed to talk about that you'd like to mention?
Oh my! Well, I basically, as I said, I like to talk to people one on one. So if anyone's out there and wants to chat, I'm on social media. Send me a message,
Yeah, message
send
Matt.
me an
There's
email.
links below.
My website is mattsteady.com. And if you go on there, you can hear some videos and samples of the new album. But yes, if you like it, let me know. And yeah, get in contact. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this. This was a lovely chat.
Oh, great fun. Thanks, Nelly.